of the program. But first, we have to start with a really interesting report yesterday from Mike Florio, Bull, your favorite.
Yeah, I don't like
of
him.
Pro Football Focus. I know you don't. Pro Football Talk, rather. So Florio wrote a column, and there were two big takeaways. Number one was the NFLPA is bracing for what he called unprecedented punishment of Deshaun Watson. Unprecedented, guys. I mean, I don't know how they can say that. We know what happened to Ray Rice.
Right.
He had the death penalty. He never played again after his punishment. The second takeaway in this was, if that punishment happens, the union is going to come on strong with an aggressive defense that is going to be centered around comparing Watson's punishment to 3 owners who had similar issues with women that really faced no discipline whatsoever. So, and by the way, it's not just 3 owners; it's 3 cornerstone owners.
And Daniel Snyder
Robert Kraft of the Patriots, Daniel Snyder of the Washington Commanders, and Jerry Jones of the Cowboys. So these are 3 prominent guys that had their own issues.
And Jay, Daniel Snyder in particular, there is a boatload of allegations.
Well, Robert Kraft, there was
him.
videotape of him getting a massage illegally.
But yeah, sure. But to me, Daniel Snyder is much more Daniel Snyder's been accused of just a workplace environment of bad treatment towards women. I mean, across the board.
And guess what?
Yeah.
Sue Robinson, who is the former judge who has been appointed and approved by both the Players Association and the owners, is the one who's going to dispense whatever punishment Deshaun Watson gets. Her suggestion to the league, which they did not take, was that Daniel Snyder be forced to sell the Redskins. That's according to reports. She hasn't confirmed that. The league hasn't confirmed that. But according to reports, Sue Robinson was going to recommend to the league that Snyder be forced to sell his team.
He should have been.
I call them the Redskins. They're the Commanders now.
Yeah.
So basically, I just want to start with your reaction. And G. Bush, I want you to start. And you know why. Because you've been sitting in that chair for 3 or 4 weeks saying, hold up.
Yeah.
You can't have rules for players that don't apply to the owners. So go.
You're welcome, guys out there. I did a eloquent video that has reached over, I think it's over about 50,000. Another one that's over 28,000, 30,000, detailing exactly what you just heard. My argument, my case, and I just said, why do people believe that the NFL Players Association is not going to put up a fight? First and foremost, you are in a catch-22 here. Because if you have unprecedented, when you say unprecedented, never seen before penalties against Deshaun Watson, and then you look over to the people that are paying Deshaun Watson, the people who are owning these organizations, and they get 0, well, see, now you set up a catch-22. I argue that there's been 3 death penalties. 1, Ray Rice, never seen again. It looks like they're trying to incorporate this indefinite suspension for Deshaun Watson. And the second one is Colin Kaepernick. He's been erased. So you're saying that, and so when they say the shield has to understand, and you can't have certain conduct. That's a lie, because here's the thing: you've effectively gotten rid of Colin Kaepernick for simply kneeling. So you tell me.
With Josh Gordon too, you could throw him in there. They effectively ruined and ended his career for smoking weed.
So you're sitting here, we got to do this because it's the sexual assault, all the allegations, it's just way too much. Well, okay, you didn't think it was way too much when Kaepernick don't play, and you lost in court, and you had to pay him for collusion. I also will say, what happened? What happened to the Flores case? Because anybody heard anything about that Flores case? Oh, I'm sorry. John Gruden lasted how many days? 2? Where was all the John Gruden? He's done. He's gone. Let's shoo him up out of here. You guys have no moral ground to stand on. 0. So you better just give him, and I'm going to let you know something right now. I don't use the R word very, very loosely. But I'm telling you, if you give an indefinite suspension, you're going to have a problem with not only people on one side. You got a problem with people who look like me, who identify like me, and come from where we come from. Because there's obviously 2 sets of standards, 2 sets of outcomes, and 2 sets of penalties, depending on who you are. I'll just leave it at that.
DeQuell?
Yeah, I think the NFL here just doesn't have a good reputation when it comes to discipline. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
Even when I played the game, when I was a player, you didn't know what outweighed what punishment
would fit the crime. So here, the NFL just completely dropped the ball in this case. You feel like they have all the facts. We understand there were no criminal charges, but yet there's a ton of civil cases out here. Let's make a decision already. What are you waiting on? Make a decision. This unprecedented punishment, what does that even mean?
What do you think it means? Because
a year suspension. I think it means a year suspension, but not indefinitely from being able to work. There was no criminal charge. Again, I'm not trying to absorb him from any responsibility with these women accusing him of sexual misconduct.
Right.
I'm not saying that at all. He has to share some blame here. But again, the NFL has continuously dropped the ball when it comes to mandating punishment, being proactive. The NFL's always gotten a bad name, in my opinion, of being this reactive kind of space, right? It's like if we get with the Ray Rice incident you brought up, they initially handed down, I believe it was a 4-game suspension.
Then
and
the
then
video
shows, and now it's like, oh, wait, we got to really, put the hammer down.
They underreacted, and then perhaps some say they overreacted.
Yeah, so they just don't have a good reputation when it comes to
Do you like the method that they've employed? Because the commissioner used to be the judge, jury, executioner. And to sort of take himself out of that bullseye of criticism, the league decided that they were going to go to an outside former judge, and they've agreed upon Sue Robinson as the person that will sit in that role. The owners approved her, and the players' union approved her. And at the time, I thought, you know what, that's a pretty good way of doing it, because at least you've got the union that says she's going to be fair, and the owners. But now, even before this first big criticism,
it looks good.
She's in the crosshairs.
She looks good. It looks like you wanted to do something about it. But then again, you said,
lip
hey,
service, you say.
Daniel Snyder, I think you should force him to sell. We're not gonna go that far, Sue.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't get beside yourself now.
We don't want you coming out with that. Don't mention that publicly.
Breaks now.
Yeah. And I'm surprised the Players Association didn't go crazy over that.
And by the way, one owner we didn't mention, Jimmy Haslam, whose business got raided by the FBI.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay? His whole business got raided by the FBI. A lot of people got trouble for that. He got somehow off the hook, even though he was running the whole show. Okay, they were doing all kinds of shady stuff, and he got no punishment whatsoever.
Right.
So there is a double standard. We know this in the NFL. It's completely unfair. It's there. The owners don't even hide behind it. There's been no penalties for anybody, really, in any kind of legitimate way. In terms of what DeQuell was saying, inconsistency, right? Calvin Ridley got suspended for betting. Remember last year? He got banned for a full year.
Yeah.
Josh Gordon, all those suspensions. Now, the rules were the rules with Josh Gordon. You got to follow the rules. They're stupid. I think testing for marijuana is the dumbest thing on the face of the earth, unless you're a doctor or a pilot. But I don't care if you're smoking pot as a football player.
Especially when many
me.
use it as a pain relief.
Exactly. It's so stupid. And it's becoming legal smartly, finally, in a lot of states. I will say this. I think I've seen some of the tweets at Pat McManaman yesterday. They're disgraceful. Some people are saying idiotic things. Pat's entitled to his opinion. I think we all acknowledge that we disagree with him. Certainly G and I disagree with what Pat said yesterday.
Right.
But I respect his opinion to say that and have that belief. But the bottom line is
that, to my point earlier yesterday on Twitter, that's why it's a dangerous place
That's
to live.
right. But the bottom line is, guys, if they suspend him for any more than 8 games, if I'm the PA, I'm going bananas over that. Eight should be the max. I think it should be between 6 and 8. Let me just finish here. But any more than that is ridiculous because, and here's the bottom, like the idea that the league would be worried about too small a suspension because the PR is stupid. Because there's a guy who's done something bad on every football team, in every police station, in every fire station, in every radio station, in every office in America, and they don't lose their jobs over it. Unless they go to jail. Unless they go to jail.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. We can go through every walk of life. And it's stupid. If I want to protest everything that I don't like, well, I can't buy any clothes because they're made in places where there's child labor. I can't go to 15 different restaurants because I don't like their politics. Eventually, what am I going to do? Sit in my home and twiddle my thumbs?
This is tangential. I don't want to go down this road too much, but we have in this cancel culture that people have lost their jobs for tweeting their opinion.
Right.
A lot of people have lost their jobs for tweeting their opinion.
Yeah.
So, that's a societal issue. I think in general we've become less tolerant of people's thought. And
Colin Kaepernick has
and I wanted to clear something up too, G. I didn't want it to make it seem when Colin Kaepernick was never suspended by the league. What the league did to him was they just colluded against him to keep him out.
Yes.
Which is even worse.
Yes.
Because they tried to hide behind something, and they all got together and said, and look, they had to write him a check because it was going to go to court.
Right.
And he was going to.
Yeah, he didn't actually lose in court, but
no,
he
didn't.
would have.
He didn't lose in court, but the league felt that there was a chance that they could lose.
Yeah, right. They were going to.
And so here's one of the points that I want to make before we move on off of this. The reason this is a brilliant strategy from the NFLPA, two reasons, I think. Number one, there is a line in the personal conduct policy, and I don't know, McNuggets, if you took this graphic yet or not.
We got it, yep.
But I'll read it. The line from the personal conduct policy reads like this. Ownership and club or league management will be subjected to more significant discipline when violations of the personal conduct policy occur.
Wow.
Not just players,
Wow.
ownership
Wow.
and management. And here's the real genius behind this strategy. The NFLPA knows that the league did its own internal investigation.
Right.
But here's what they're going to do. They're going to drag the owners to court, and they're going to say, we need discovery. We want everything you found in your personal investigation.
Right.
Because it was very interesting. The investigation into the then Redskins, or Washington football team, led to one person being disciplined, and that was John Gruden, who was not a league employee at the time, who said some terrible things in some email to the general manager of Washington at the time. You mean to tell me that voluminous investigation just turned up that? So the league now is going to have to take everything they learned in the Dallas investigation, the Washington investigation, as well as the who was the other owner?
Robert Kraft.
The Patriots.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to give it to the NFLPA. And they don't want that out of their hands.
Right.
So this might be a brilliant strategy by the NFLPA
Yeah.
to leak this news, their strategy, to Florio in an effort to tell the league, careful, boys.
Yeah.
Because if you come down too hard, we'll see you in court.
Yeah.
And we'll get to see all the evidence that you uncovered, that you buried on Washington, on Dallas, and on New England.
I'm putting my last comment to DeQuell. Let me ask you this question. You played in the league, man. And when you are told from a standpoint as a player, you can't do this, you can't do this. They got symposiums where you can't do this. This is how you can mess up. They got motivational speakers. Your coaches tell you. How does it feel as a player when you've been told since the beginning about accountability? That big accountability word is huge in the league.
Right.
But yet and still, you see the owner do something, and then you see coaches do something. How does that make you feel as a player? And do you kind of like look at it like, really? Like this is we don't have the same set of standards.
Right. You realize you're playing under a different set of rules than most people. And ownership, from a player standpoint, when all this is happening, Daniel Snyder's, all these owners being caught up in this misconduct, as a player, you realize right away you're operating on a different set of rules. And the game I'm playing is completely different from theirs. So it's a very slippery slope you have to play. And if you understand it, you have issues. You have this double standard with the league.
Was that talked about a lot amongst players?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, guys, we forget there was a guy in the league who didn't get an unprecedented punishment who actually killed someone.
You're right.
Wow, you're right.
And he was able to come back and
You're
play.
right.
You're absolutely
I forgot
right.
about that.
So
Dang.
we can go back to the history of the NFL and look at the inconsistency of punishment. So that's been an ongoing conversation throughout players, coaches, in its entirety.
Unfortunately, in America, the 1% does whatever the hell they want, and they face no consequences.
And I think that this issue in the NFL may change that at this league level. One other thing I wanted to point out, I mentioned John Gruden, who was the one who lost his job when they were investigating Washington, and Gruden wasn't even an employee of the league. A judge recently ruled that his lawsuit against the league can go forward. And the reason that is important, because if the league doesn't settle with John Gruden, and my guess is they will, and the reason they will is because all of the stuff that they uncovered in that investigation is going to become evidence.
Yes.
And we're going to learn about it. And the one thing the league is very good at doing is burying stuff they don't want anybody to know about.
Some Congress people are asking for the whole Washington investigation.
Absolutely.
Which has been released.
So the league is in a very tenuous spot right now. And this Deshaun Watson issue could end up being the powder keg that leads to big issues for the NFL. Let's see what happens from here. But I think it was a smart strategy by the NFLPA to really put the pressure on the league before anything comes out and lets them know, careful.
We're not letting it go.
Because we're not letting this go.
Right.
Jay, we got it. DeQuell yesterday was at Browns camp, and he saw Deshaun Watson practice.
Yes.
And you said something to me about watching him. Can you share that with the
Yeah,
audience?
yeah. So, I spent 8 years here in Cleveland, and carousel of quarterbacks. I get to Indy, you can tell Andrew Luck, the way the ball comes out of his hands is just different. Yesterday, watching Jacoby Brissett and watching Deshaun Watson, stark difference. The ball was crisp. He knew where he was going with the ball. It just feels and looks different. And listen, whenever he's able to play, he's going to be a difference maker right away.